This video is brought to you by Skillshare. More on them later in the video. I love when an art channel that I really like does an idea that I've been thinking about because it feels like validation that it's a good enough idea that I should do it as well. So recently, the awesome art channel Drawfee drew their Gymsonas. I'll link the video in the cards and description, and those all turned out super cool. Basically, the idea is drawing yourself as a Pokemon gym leader. Gives me an excuse to do a fun, cool design and draw some of my favorite Pokemon. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I haven't decided exactly what Pokemon I'm going to use, but I'm going to take a slightly different spin on it. Instead of designing a Gymsona for me exactly, I'm going to design one for a character that was in my old book series, Multiverse Tales, he was a character that was basically my analog character. He was very similar to me, but I kind of like the idea of working in his power set a little bit and using that as inspiration. I'll explain him in more detail after the jump, but let's get right into this because I'm super excited. First thing that I had to do was gather up a list of all of my favorite fire-type Pokemon and steel-type Pokemon. So I got all those together and I've got them up here, and the reason for that is that Sterling Engeal, the main character of the first book in the Multiverse Tales series, has two superpowers, fire and metal. He can basically emit this metal from his body to coat over his skin to protect himself. So I want to use those two things as the inspiration for this gym. Now, I'm already having a hard time trying to decide who to cut from the list. I'm gonna draw two Pokemon with the character, one fire and one steel. Now, Houndoom would be a particularly funny way to go based on what happens in the book, because in the book, Sterling and Alexis spend pretty much the whole time fighting off hellhounds. But I might eventually want to do a Gymsona for one of my other original characters, who's a devil girl kind of character named Diamos, and Houndoom would be a must for her, so no, you know what? I'm gonna scrap Houndoom right now. I also really like the idea of Alolan Marowak, but I don't like the fact that it's also a ghost type, because that doesn't really fit with the character, so I'm gonna have to cut him too. You know what, I can save us some time here. We're going with Charizard. Now for the steel type Pokemon, I really love Alolan Sandslash, but he's too icy, and that would make this seem more like it's Todoroki's Gymsona than Sterling Engeal's Gymsona, so I think we're gonna have to cut him out. And again with Lucario's probably my favorite of the ones left here, but he feels like he's more fighting type than steel type, so I think we're gonna cut him. And I think we'll cut Lairon too. My two favorites of this batch are these two here. Maybe I'll get into the roughing stage and figure out which I like better. I'll try out a few ideas with each. You know what I just realized I haven't done in ages is some traditional warm-up sketches with ballpoint pens. I did that for a while and people said they really liked it. I don't know why I stopped doing it, so let's do that now. Let's warm up with some ballpoint pen sketches, and maybe I'll start roughing out some composition ideas. Now, as I was setting up, I kind of remembered why I don't do this warm-up process anymore. It's because I actually have a different warm-up process now, one that I did right when I woke up this morning. But I'm going to do this anyway, and I'll talk about that process because I think it's a really good one for other people to use as well. But no problem with warming up twice. Now, as usual with these rough drawings, I'm just doing a whole bunch of really quick, no wrong answer kind of sketches of the things that I might be drawing today. So I've got Metagross in there, Charizard, some Scizor drawings, and then just roughing out some potential pose ideas for the actual human character in the piece. Then I also do some random faces and stuff like that. But back to that other warm-up process that I've been doing lately, the reason that I haven't been doing this on camera as much, is if you go to this site called reference.sketchdaily.net, and this is something that was actually recommended to me in a Skillshare course that I took, but we're not in the ad portion, so I'll get to that later. And basically this site auto-generates different images of people in different poses every 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever, and you have to try and draw the pose in the time frame that you've allotted. So when I first get up and want to warm up and wake up my brain, I like to set it to a new pose every 30 seconds, do about 10 of those, and I almost never finish the whole pose in 30 seconds, but I try to do it as fast as I can, and I feel like I've been building up a bigger repertoire of dynamic pose ideas from doing this. This is something that I did in art school, and pretty much everyone will do in art school with live models. The teacher will have the model switch poses every 1 minute, 5 minutes, whatever, but this is a way that you can do it straight out of your home. Highly recommend it. Again, link it in the description. But anyway, here's the end of my actual rough sketches for the video that we're doing today. Well, You know, there's nothing particularly special in here, but a warm-up's a warm-up, and I didn't really do any thumbnail sketches, so let's get into that now and start working out what this whole piece is gonna look like. Now, just in case I felt inspired to use any more Pokemon, I brought in images of a bunch of the other ones I'd considered, but I do end up just going with Charizard and Metagross. With Metagross, I really couldn't resist the idea of using him for this piece because I figured the character could sit on top of him and then Charizard could kind of be peeking over the top of the character so we could do a more vertical composition, and I just thought just the combination of all of them worked really well. I tried out a couple other potential ideas. In fact, to come up with some pose ideas, I'd taken some reference footage of me in some different potential poses, but I don't end up going with any of those because I really like this idea of the character sitting on Metagross. And at first I was like, wait, is it weird to have a character sitting on a Pokemon? Would that be, I don't know, disrespectful to the Pokemon? But then I was like, no, I mean, people surf on Pokemon and fly on Pokemon. It's not weird for someone to be riding on a Pokemon. So I ended up going with that idea. I tweaked it a lot in a bunch of different ways, tried some different sizes of the characters, but in the end, this is what I came up with, and I'm pretty happy with how it's going so far. This is something that happens occasionally while I'm working. I'll flip the canvas, fix some things up, flip it back and forth, and realize that I kind of like it flipped the other way. In this case, it's likely because I grew up reading, Western style left to right, so my eye naturally wants to start up in the left corner a bit more and then go down to the right. So, I flipped it, and I think I'm gonna stick with this composition, but this ruff still needs a lot of work. Now, odds are if you're still watching at this point, you probably kinda like my art. If not, what are you still doing here? I mean, by all means, stick around, great to have you here. But anyway, most of the drawing and animation skills I've acquired and used both in my professional career and in videos on this channel comes from taking online classes, which is why I'm super glad that Skillshare is sponsoring today's video. If you're looking to start off 2020 as a super productive year where you acquire some new skills, deepen existing passions, and just get super creative, then Skillshare is a very good place for you to be. Their classes are fantastic for inspiration and encouraging personal growth. Skillshare is an online learning community that offers memberships with meaning. With so much to explore, real projects to create, and the support of fellow creatives, Skillshare empowers you to accomplish real growth. Skillshare offers classes designed for real life, so you can move forward with your creative journey without putting your life on hold. Got limited free time? I do too, which is why I'm really glad that Skillshare's got some really fantastic short classes that can fit into even the busiest schedules. I'm obviously partial to the illustration courses. Recently I took one by Jerem Vogel called Digital Illustration, Learn to Use Procreate. And now in my spare time, I'm always drawing in Procreate. But there's also courses on animation, graphic design, filmmaking, whatever creative pursuit y'all have, they've probably got a class for it. And best of all, well, maybe not best of all, I guess it's subjective, but another really great thing about it is it's super affordable. You don't have to spend a mountain of cash to learn stuff that you're really passionate about learning. With an annual subscription, Skillshare is less than $10 a month. So click the link in the description to get 2 free months of premium membership and start exploring your creativity. Alright, now, enough ranting about how much I love online classes, let's get back into this Gymsona. Now this drawing did take a lot of work and finessing and moving the underlayer of roughs to fix up the overlayer and moving stuff around to get it all right. But once I got into a groove, I started thinking about how this character's story could go. I mean, it was obviously supposed to be originally one of my other original characters, just tweaked into a gym leader. But as I was drawing this more and more and thinking up more stuff, I started giving this character more of their own life and origin. And that led me to a sort of different design when I actually get onto designing the character's outfit. And I really wanted to lean into this idea of the character having a bit of split personality. Not in the, mental condition split personality, just I was thinking about it as if this character has some kind of intense anime backstory where both of his parents were gym leaders that ran different gyms, very different types of gyms, and maybe they split up when he was younger and they both wanted him to end up taking over their gym, either the fire gym or the steel gym. And he didn't know what he wanted to do, and eventually he became kind of bitter that his parents were trying to pull him in different directions so much. So he became a bit of a rebellious youth kind of guy, and he decided that he was going to take after both of his parents, but he was going to become better at being a fire trainer and a steel trainer than either of them were individually, and then he was going to take on both of them. So I decided to lean into more of this punky aesthetic for the character. I gave him some kind of anime style spiky hair. I gave him kind of a sleeveless vest and some armband kind of things, and then one of those chains on his belt. Just anything that was kind of punky looking I gave him to make him feel a bit more anime rebellious kind of character. Also, in terms of the proportions, I was taking a lot of inspiration from an artist I'm a huge fan of, Cheeks Galloway, who does more cartoony stuff, and he's really fantastic at it. He's really great at doing nice, simple shapes. I took more inspiration for how I drew the feet and legs from him for this one, and I really like it for the style of this drawing. Oh, also, because I know my parents watch all of my videos, in fact, my dad watches them on like 8 different screens, I want to make sure to emphasize that the relation between this character and his parents has nothing to do with my relationship with my parents. Mom, Dad, I love you both. You raised me really well. Even though this character is supposed to be inspired by me, there's no connection there. Now into the inking stage, I was feeling super confident about this one. I loved the composition, I loved how all the characters were looking, I liked the design of this character, I liked that I had a bit of a story going in my head, and I tried to not go too intense with the inking because I knew I wanted to do most of the detailing and the coloring, which I normally do, but sometimes I'll try to do a bit more detailing and inking. Not with this one. I don't even do that many sections of black in this one to up the contrast in this stage, because I figure I'd just do that in the coloring stage later. In fact, some of the sections of black that I end up adding into the inking stage, I end up getting rid of later because I realized this area should actually be in light, so let's pull that out of there. I also thought about potentially adding more into the background, but because there's so many characters moving with bits over each other and behind each other, I didn't want to complicate it too much by adding background stuff, which can sound like I'm being a bit lazy, but I really didn't think it was a good idea to over-detail the background for this one. So I decided to keep it kind of similar to my Scarlet Spider-Verse Juggernaut drawing, where we kind of just get the ground with some cracks and rocky bits in it, and then I'll do some light sky-style texturing in the background, but keep it pretty simple. Something else you'll probably notice in this drawing is that the Pokemon each only have one eye showing, which originally as I was doing that, I kind of wanted to have it so that the character's leg wasn't over Metagross's eye, but then I kind of leaned more into this idea of the character being split between fire and steel, and I decided that he was going to have the 2 different colored eyes, so I thought it would be a kind of cool idea if Charizard, who's largely orangey red kind of color, only had one blue eye showing, and Metagross, who's mostly blue looking, only had one red eye showing, and that just kind of, a bit of symmetry in there. Might be kind of a silly idea, and I don't know if it actually improves the piece, but I just thought it was kind of fun, and I was excited to work that in when I got into the coloring stage, which I think we're about ready to get into now, so let's first take a look at how the inks went. So here's something that I bet most people have noticed, and I bet there's already a bunch of comments about it, but I forgot Metagross's 2 back legs. Only gave him 2 legs. So that's gonna be a bit of a pain to fix. I'm not gonna record myself fixing it, so let's just cut to when I've, added those legs and inking and just get into the coloring stage. So I added those 2 extra legs, and I did end up adding a little bit more black into the image, especially on those legs, to make them a bit farther back, and I knew I'd shade them out a little bit more. And I do actually like how those legs add to the image. I think it looks better with them in there, besides just the fact that he's supposed to have the 4 legs. And now that we're into the flatting stage, I want to point out that the only 2 colors I'm using in this whole piece are blue and orange. I mean, obviously lots of variations of those 2 colors. I lean into red in some parts of the orange, and I lean into green in some parts of the blue, but it is just blue and orange, and I think it works really nicely with those 2 colors. In fact, I've never been happier with how a flatting stage came out, and I almost didn't even want to go on to the next part because of how happy I was with the flats. I mean, obviously I did want to make the image more, rendered, but I thought it looked pretty cool with the flatting stage finished. So normally I wouldn't stop around here, but just take a look at how the flatting turned out, because I really liked it. I really love that with Metagross's back legs in there, it really helps emphasizing the very blatant framing of this character inside this little circle area that's being made by Charizard's wing, Charizard's body, and Metagross's leg, and then also with Charizard's hand kind of circling around the main character's head. It really just helps draw focus to that main character. I was sort of doing that intentionally originally, but with the Metagross leg being added in there, it was kind of a happy accident, but I'm very happy with it. And now we're into the home stretch, just the shading and lighting where we really get this piece to be the finished thing that it's supposed to be. I thought something better was going to come to my head, but I didn't. And what I'm doing to start off is I'm doing a light layer of shading and lighting with a grainy brush that I've been using a lot lately to texture my characters. But something that I realized I did wrong in my Mandalorian Sona, which I did the other day, that people who saw that video know I wasn't totally thrilled with how it came out. I realized that part of the reason for that is when I've been using this textured brush to texture the characters at the start, usually I'm doing that on a character that's just on their own without a background to them. So having the texture on just them and then just a color splash background works well because they stand out. But on the Mandalorian Sona one, I used that texture on pretty much everything, so there wasn't enough contrast. So for this drawing, what I decided to do was have Metagross and the ground both have that texture on them, and not put it on Charizard and the main character, because I wanted them, first of all, to look a little bit smoother, and that texture that I use can make things look kind of granular and rocky. But also I wanted that contrast. I wanted the character to look rendered slightly differently than the ground and Metagross. Now admittedly, after I finish this and I'm tweaking things a little bit more, I end up adding that texture to Charizard and some other texture things to Charizard because he ends up looking a little bit too simple, but overall I think this idea does work really well and it makes the character stand out better. So I'm really glad I learned something from that video because I wasn't totally thrilled with it. I like things about it, but I think this one turns out a lot better because I kind of thought about how I could fix things in my process. So that's a good thing to know and something I'm going to work into my fully rendered art more so in the future, not texturing everything with the same brush. And of course after that I went into my usual process of cell shading. I'm using a very dark blue to do the shadows, and then after that I use an orangey color to do a lot of the lighting, and with the lighting, a lot of people know my process already, but I basically block out parts of the character with the lasso tool and then use a light airbrush to brush in the lighting, and I think that looks really good, and I think I've been getting better and better at that process. I feel like I've been complimenting myself a bunch in my last few videos, obviously besides the Mandalorian Sona thing, but I'm really happy with how my art has been progressing so far. So sorry if I've been sounding a little bit cocky, but I've been having so much fun with these videos lately. My art is finally getting to a point where I look at it and I go, that is exactly what I wanted this to look like. That's super cool. Anyway, everybody, as I said, once I finished the screen recording, I did a little bit more extra tweaking of some last minute things. You can see my camera over my shoulder recording as I do that. But now the drawing is all finished. I'm super excited for you all to see it. Here is a Gymsona that isn't exactly mine, isn't exactly Sterling's, is kind of his own original character, but regardless, he is the gym leader of the Crossfire Gym. As much as I love doing episodes where I do a whole bunch of drawings that take a bit less time because I think it's more entertaining to do a whole bunch of drawings in a video, this has really got me wanting to do more videos where I do one fleshed out piece, because I really like how this one turned out. But let me know what you think. What do you prefer? Videos like this where I do one bigger drawing, or a whole bunch of different drawings? Like my usual thing in the My Hero Academia Venomized episode, or the Overwatch Dungeons & Dragons ones. I'd say it's a tough call, but I'm curious what you all think. And of course, once again, thank you to Drawfee for inspiring this video, to everyone who suggested it, and of course thanks to Skillshare again for sponsoring this video. But that's all for this week. Make sure you subscribe and got the bell rung, and leave a like if you enjoyed this. But I'm Christian Pearson, this has been PopCross Studios, home of the nerdiest art videos on YouTube, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.